Good afternoon, everyone. Room's looking a little light. I guess I sent everybody home already. Sorry about that. All right, a topic that is near and dear to me. I'm going to talk about CVSA and how we as an organization partner with everybody in this room. I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive on how every single person here is connected to CVSA, whether you're aware of that or not. So right off the bat, the power of associations. You heard a little bit of a discussion yesterday from the state trucking associations on their responsibility and how they work collectively with the trucking industry within their states. But then we also have a number of other associations on the state and national level and how we all work as a partnership together in CMV safety. So right off the bat, just a quick Google search, there are three definitions on the screen here talking about associations, and associations are partnerships. They come in a various variety of how all of those fit together. But associations are a network of people that come together for a common goal and a common purpose. So who are we? Many of you already know who the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance is. And for those of you who don't, there's a quick little boilerplate description of who we are. And I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive on what that means and every single piece of how you are connected to the organization. So when people look at CVSA, they think of us as, oh, we're this external entity that dictates CMV enforcement policy. But that's not exactly correct. You are CVSA. All of you, everybody in this room for a variety of reasons, and that's a big finger on this screen. So right off the bat, our first partnership that we have is our Memorandum of Understanding that state CMV enforcement agencies have with each other. So back in the early 1980s, when the trucking industry was going through deregulation, there was an urging on behalf of industry and across the country and state enforcement to come up with a harmonized roadside inspection program to make sure that everybody was doing things collectively the same. So when a CMV was traveling across state lines and being inspected from one jurisdiction to another, that the same set of rules would apply and would be applied in one jurisdiction to another. So at the state CMV level, we call them lead agencies. The lead agency is responsible for coordinating all CMV enforcement within that jurisdiction. So if we have other state enforcement agencies that want or need to do commercial vehicle enforcement, they coordinate with that lead agency. So that is another partnership at the state enforcement level. Dropping down one additional level, we also have a number of state and local officials that are involved in commercial vehicle enforcement or want to be involved in commercial vehicle enforcement. And those jurisdictions or those entities, whether it's a city PD or a county sheriff's department, coordinate with the state lead agency within that state, sign an MOU, and all of their enforcement activities are then coordinated at that level. So now from the state provincial perspective, we have everybody that is conducting CMV enforcement all networked. They sign an MOU. An MOU, even though that CVSA is the conduit and it's our signatory on the MOU is essentially a promise to each other. It's a promise to one jurisdiction to another that we will abide by all the policies and the service criteria and anything that we develop as an organization to make sure that CMV enforcement is done in uniform. So it's a promise to each other. Then we move on to our federal partners. Our federal partners are very active within the activities of the Alliance as well. You're very familiar with FMCSA. FMCSA through High Priority Grant is supporting activities like we are here today with this Research Safety Summit. We are also very connected to FMCSA with a variety of our High Priority Grants as well, and the MICSAP program on behalf of the states. We then also have hazardous materials training programs with PHMSA and our COMED program, which I'll talk a little bit about later. FHWA with all of our size and weight activities. NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The National Transportation Board sends us regularly safety recommendations that they would like to see implemented in the CMV safety arena, and we work with them on a regular basis. The Department of Energy for our high-level radioactive waste program, and also Transport Canada on the Canadian side. Then we move into our public sector partner associations. So these are other state or provincial level organizations that are owned and operated by state governments. So AMVA, that's the DMV or the DMV Association. We also have IRP, IFTA, UCR, and on the Canadian side of the border, CCMTA. So we refer to them as public sector partner associations because they are coordinated at a state provincial level. We work with them hand in hand. We report out at each other's board meetings, and we make sure that anything connected to the commercial vehicle enforcement space on a state provincial level is coordinated. We want to make sure that we're not stepping on each other's toes, but and also want to make sure that that nothing is falling through the cracks as well. So we coordinate on a regular basis on anything that impacts anybody in this room regarding CMV enforcement. We then move on to our state and national associations that we partner with. Now this is a little different, where these are usually trade associations, and they are all not listed here. I listed just a number of them that we interact regularly with, such as the American Trucking Associations. Many of the trucking associations that were here today presenting, they're also members of CVSA, so they coordinate on their state, local level, and then that all filters up into CVSA, where they send representation to participate in our committee structure. And then all of our other industry associations like OIDA, the Trucking Alliance, National Take Trunk Carriers, and then our related bus associations, ABA and UMA. All of these organizations we interact with on a regular basis. Many of you do on a national and state level as well, but we report out to them, we attend safety meetings, we make sure that anything that we're doing as a commercial vehicle enforcement space is all networked and communicated. Then we move on to the transportation industry, a number of you in this room as well. We're a number of our trucking companies and bus companies and anybody that is connected to CMV, the CMV space, and also the academia, that's why we're here today. How we all fit together. We all play a role in commercial vehicle enforcement, commercial vehicle safety. And we have a number of folks that are active within CVSA that participate in committees and programs, just like I mentioned earlier for the trucking industry. And we are a network of networks to make sure that all of these partnerships work in harmony. We can't do things independently. There are a number of folks that look at CVSA, how come CVSA is doing this? Why is CVSA doing that? Some people think that I am the regulator, and I get a lot of colorful fan mail from folks, where I am just the facilitator. I am obviously the executive director of CVSA. I coordinate the gathering of all of these groups when we meet regularly for all of our meetings and programs. But we are a network. We are a bunch of partnerships that all have to work in harmony to make sure that we are successful in what we do every single day. Then we move on to our industry sponsors. Some of the sponsors here today are also sponsors of this event. These companies invest in associations and meetings like this because they believe in the partnerships. It's an investment. They want to make sure that they play a role in safety. They play a very active role within CVSA and other events like we have here today. But that is another form of partnerships. It's because they want to be either a safe company, or they have technology they want to build and make our roads safer and work with our state enforcement partners. So that is a form of partnerships and how this fits together. So now that I've broken down all of the various elements and how all of you fit into CVSA in one of those specific buckets, then we get to our CVSA committees. And we have a variety of CVSA committees. Some of them are relatively new. For example, our Crash Data and Investigation Standards Committee, that is something that just kicked off recently, more so because of the Crash Causal Factors program that we're kicking off with FMCSA, and that is their initiative. So anybody that wants to or needs to play a role within that space, if they have a home where they can come, we meet regularly, we talk about issues and how things can be improved upon as we're building out that post-crash commercial vehicle enforcement program. Another big initiative, and you heard that earlier from our ADS, our Autonomous Vehicle Community, is our Enforcement and Industry Modernization Committee. That is a gathering point for ADS developers, motor carriers, enforcement, anybody that is interested in the evolution of the autonomous vehicle world. That is just one element. Another element is anything associated with our Level 8 inspection program. Our Level 8 inspection program is a little different, but there is a nexus to ADS as well, and they may converge at some point in the future, and that is the ability to conduct commercial vehicle inspection as the vehicle is traveling down the road at highway speeds, and having that electronic inspection conducted where it's networked into the ELD, the mobile driver's license of the driver, and the telematics within the vehicle to conduct as much as we can, a level 3 for sure, which is a driver-related inspection, and as many vehicle inspection-related components as possible, auto-populate a roadside inspection report, send it to the safety department, all instantaneously, without even reporting to a weigh scale. So that is something that is evolving, and that is where not only the motor carriers, but also many of the folks in this room are participating in building out that infrastructure and leveraging the partnerships with vendors, the motor carrier community, and also state enforcement agencies. Another form of partnerships is we have a number of programs at CVSA that we're very proud of. The North American Cargo Securement Harmonization is a partnership between the Canadian Council of Motor Transport Administrators, Transport Canada, and FMCSA. That is, we are currently the coordinating entity to make sure that all of our North American cargo securement efforts are all harmonized. We are also the current caretaker of the North American Fatigue Management Program, which is a partnership with FMCSA and Transport Canada on implementing that program, and that is a program dedicated to driver safety for motor carriers. We have our COMED program, which was originally started by RISPA, now PHMSA, which is the Pipeline and Hazardous Material Safety Administration, and that is a partnership in working with state enforcement, government, and anybody operating in the hazardous materials space as a motor carrier or a shipper in that training program. We also have another program, the Human Trafficking Prevention Program. Well, let me be clear, CVSA does not have a human trafficking program, it's a human trafficking prevention program. We get tripped up every once in a while, but I want to make that very clear. And our partnership with TAT and Kyla and how that program is run. Then we have our Level 8 inspection, our Level 6 inspection program with the Department of Energy. That is every shipment of high-level radioactive waste from spent nuclear fuel from a nuclear facility is inspected under our program. So that's another form of partnerships with our federal partners. We have our Operation Safe Driver program, and as Tracy mentioned earlier in his previous presentation, that a number of crashes involving a commercial motor vehicle are not associated with a motor carrier, that a lot of the crashes are because of the four-wheelers operating in and around a commercial motor vehicle. So we have a program dedicated to dedicated enforcement program dedicated with targeting unsafe driving behavior around a commercial motor vehicle. There's been other pilot programs such as Troopers in a Truck or other programs to make sure that anybody operating around commercial vehicles is operating safely. And then we have our IDEA program, currently sponsored by PrePass as well. And that program is identifying and rewarding driver excellence. It is identifying and a driver of a motor carrier with a clean driving record and really highlighting the importance of safe driving behaviors on our highway. And this year we're recognizing the first driver from a motor coach company from Greyhound, and that will occur in a couple weeks at our annual conference next month in Denver, Colorado. And then lastly, we have our North American Inspectors Championship. That was an event that just wrapped up last week. That is an event that is in partnership with the American Trucking Associations. And that is an event that we started back in 1999. It's co-located. That is a picture of all of our inspectors last week on the stage. There's 2,000 people in attendance at this awards ceremony, and recognizing how important the roadside enforcement community is and the partnerships we have with the trucking industry as we and they share and reward inspector and driver excellence. And that is another form of partnerships that we do with CVSA, or at CVSA. There's one other program that we are just initiating right now, and that is our Inspector Memorial Program. That is a new initiative and a new program that is just catching legs, so anybody that's interested in that, if you please let me know, and we're just at the very early stages of kicking that off. More to come during our annual conference next month in Denver. And then just a little bit more about CVSA. So historically, when I first mentioned about the coordinating of the roadside inspection program and the deregulation back in the 1980s, this was essentially our core program, where we coordinate the uniform standard of how we stop, how we inspect a commercial motor vehicle roadside, and how we apply the out-of-service criteria, what the CVSA decal means, and all of the related activities associated with our core program. All of these elements are included in the Memorandum of Understanding that our state lead agencies sign. And once again, as a reminder, that is a promise to one another, to each jurisdiction, that, hey, we are going to do things uniformly and the same to make sure we have a harmonized, fair playing field, a safe playing field for the motor carriers and the traveling public on our highways. So lastly, as a reminder, who are we? It's you. Everybody in this room is CVSA. Every single one of you, whether you know it or not, whether you're aware of it or not, you're connected because of all of the variety of activities that I just mentioned. And some of it impacts you more than others, but you and your activities, that's how the partnerships of associations and communities like this and events like this, whether it's government, enforcement, or industry, all come together in partnerships. That's how it all fits together. It's who we are and what we do. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. Happy to take any questions, unless we're going to do that after.
I think we'll say hello to the end.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
I think since we have 4 speakers in this session and they're all talking about ways of partnering, we'll save all the questions to the end. But wow, Collin, CVSA has a lot going on. You got a lot to juggle there. So, but our next speaker is Marygrace Parker, and she is the freight director with the Eastern Transportation Coalition.
I'm going to lower this. You're a little taller than me. Thank you.
Do you want a lavalier, or do you want to just use this?
I'm going to just use this. It's fine. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to join you today. Ooh, what I did wrong, see already? Look, I made it small. What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? I made it small. Okay, it's just small here. Okay, so that you would probably see that I'm the most technically challenged person here. It's also why when you look at my bio, when I cut and pasted in the email I sent to Rhonda, I forgot to include my state police career. So bear with me as I try to work through this. So thank you for having us today. I want to talk to you a little bit about who the Eastern Transportation Coalition is, as I've been running around the last 2 days and you're wondering who we are. I'll touch a little bit on that. Focus a little bit on organizational structure, talk a little bit about our commercial motor vehicle related safety initiatives. And I also think it's important when you talk about organizations to talk about how you make an impact on the folks that you work with. So I'd like to use part of this time to actually give a little bit of a presentation on an actual initiative that we just completed. So who are we? We're 20 state DOTs. In states led by DOTs. Our executive board is actually comprised of the state DOTs, starting from Alabama all the way up to Maine, and including Tennessee, West Virginia, and Kentucky. You can see from this, we're a pretty significant part of the world's, the U.S. economy, and including vehicles miles traveled, population, drivers, road miles, and things like major seaports that actually impact freight and truck and other movements. Our membership, as I said, these 20 state DOTs in the District of Columbia, we have about 259 related agencies that are affiliate members or associated members, whether it's transportation authorities, port authorities, law enforcement agencies, motor vehicles, and also transportation-related associations. So the modal agencies at USDOT, but also organizations such as AMVA, ATA, AAA Foundation for Safety, among others. As again, our organizational structure, we're comprised of an executive board of our DOT CEOs. They are actually the dues-paying members of our organization. We're supported by state DOTs. We have a small coalition staff, And then our program is actually led by our program chairs and co-chairs that are representatives of various membership organizations. And then we break down into 3 committees. Our Transportation Systems Management Operations area, Freight Multimodal, which is where I work, and then our Innovation in Transportation. Within those committees and working groups, we do a number of things. TSMO is very focused on, I would say first and foremost, looking at regional highway operations through our Highway Operations Group, first responders, where they work on things like work zone safety, coordinated traffic management information, traveler information services, our transportation data marketplace, where we're able to procure data that states can buy at a lower cost, but most importantly, share with other public safety agencies without having to pay for them over and over again. Our innovation area, which has really moved from an electric vehicle working group to alternative fuels, looking at mileage-based user fee, transportation funding, which you heard a little bit about today, and then also working with AMVA and IBTTA on areas such as tolling violation enforcement. And then in my area, our freight committee looks at all things multimodal with a freight data and planning working group, a truck parking working group, and our bridge hit working group. What we do is we bring people together in a forum that's built for public agencies to share and address transportation. We try not to be duplicative to organizations like AASHTO, the National Operations Center. I think one of the key things, particularly in my freight arena, it's pretty much consultant-free without any disrespect to consultants, but it's an opportunity to close the door and talk about some of those issues without having to worry about being vendor agnostic or worry about somebody's procurement getting messed up. We also look, as I said, in terms of our transportation data marketplace and some of our planning and data work, we look at looking at data and tools that can support both acquiring data, but also how the tools can be developed and used. And then in the third area, we serve as a resource, as an extension of agency staff, whether we're helping with planning or operations, serving as subject matter experts. We work hard to share the outcomes on materials from our key work. We also have a portal on our website for commercial vehicle operations. So if you look at it, it's broken down by state, but it'll link particularly commercial vehicle operators to each state's sites, whether it's their 511, their commercial vehicle sites, their licensing sites, and we update those continuously, as well as linking to associations year-round there, Collin. And then with that, we try to focus, and today I want to talk about some of our commercial motor vehicle related activities, 3 current ones in particular that I'm interested in because we're advancing some great work in that area. One is the Bridge Hit Working Group, which is looking at mitigating bridge hits. Our truck parking working group, a lot of discussion about the shortage of truck parking, the issues of truck parking. So we're able to close the door and talk to states about what they're doing and sharing on advancing truck parking capacity, talk about real-time information systems. And when I say close the door, a lot of times at national meetings, you don't talk about what went wrong in truck parking, like pavement sensors work amazing, even in bad weather. They don't look so good when somebody digs up your parking lot to put a new information system in, and suddenly it doesn't work. And also talking a lot recently about TSMO, freight, and commercial motor vehicle communications and alerting. So work that's going on with DriveWise, Prepass, other companies, to try to get to a better way to improve communications, particularly in trucks to commercial vehicles, so that, for example, during the bridge collapse in Maryland or Hurricane Helene, we can move beyond me at 5 o'clock in the morning texting those private cell phone numbers I have for state trucking associations, OIDA, to say, will you please post these detours that North Carolina just put up and get them out to your members. We've got to find some better ways to get information in, and it's happening, but we're continuing to work in that area. But what I wanted to spend a little bit of time on today, and it's been really enjoying to be here at this conference, is to really talk about when you're an impactful organization or you're a collaborative organization, how do you actually turn it into something besides talking and collaborating? And so I think a really great example is our most recent work, which is in bridge hit mitigation. So back in about December of 2024, one of the Commissioner Dominguez from New York State is one of our vice chairs, came to us and said, you know, we're doing some work in New York. We're having some real issues with bridge hits on our parkways, on some of our some of our secondary roads, and even on some of our interstates. I want to talk to you a little bit about what we learned. So they had recently run a multi-state agency task force, or multi-agency task force within a state, collected some data, and had taken on a media campaign. So we brought them together, presented it to our members, and as a follow-up, the first thing we did is we surveyed our energy agencies and said, what's happening with bridge hits in your states? And they're kind of like, well, let me check. And so as we sent some very quick survey out, what we heard was, we'll have a few less. Some said we're about the same, but those numbers are pretty significant. And a number of states said we're becoming more numerous. So then we said, to the extent that you know, based on crash reports within your states, what are those contributing factors? So a variety of areas, whether it was from equipment malfunction, we tended to see that more in larger vehicles, in some of the specialized carriers that were carrying flatbeds carrying equipment that they maybe didn't set right. We saw a number of them with off-permitted routes, particularly with some specialized carriers, but not in the numbers we would have expected. Out-of-state drivers represented, and then a large amount tied to drivers indicating that they were using their GPS, but not necessarily a commercial one, and a lot of non-professional drivers. And so when we zoned in on that, one of the areas that really caught our attention was these non-CDL drivers. They're still driving a form of a truck, a box truck, a rental truck, but they were accounting for about 50% of bridge hits within our state. Low bridges, parkways, secondary roads, a lot of railroad bridges, and specifically that rental trucks. So whether it was somebody pulling their U-Haul, driving their U-Haul, bringing their kids back and forth to school, or just these rental box trucks coming from the Riders, the Penske's, that there's a multitude of drivers that are non-CDL driving them on a given day. So the question became, what should we do about it? So when we convened our Bridge Hit Working Group, we talked, brought together our agencies, our associations, and said, how do we tackle this issue? And so two things emerged. One was education and outreach. There was a real need to get out to the public, to get out to both the commercial vehicle, but especially the non-commercial vehicle public, and talk to them about this and try to reach them through education and outreach. And the second part was to look at some of these strategies and mitigations that agencies were using. So whether it was overhead detectors that were able to warn trucks in less sophisticated ways. In a few states, they do have some a little more sophisticated technology, but to share some of those case studies and start to look at and build a toolkit of how agencies could learn from what each others were doing. Out of that came the idea to do a quarter-wide bridge hit mitigation media campaign. So in June at our board meeting, Commissioner Dominguez from New York, Russell McMurray, a commissioner in Georgia, is our chair. She said to Russell, I want you all to join me in a multi-state campaign, and let's talk about this to the public. So we had our toolkit. New York State DOT had given us all of their materials. We did a little work, I guess I would say uncustomizing them down to so they were easily customizable, give to your graphics people materials. And New York had coined the expression, check your height, know it's right. It resonated well. And within about a month, just before we launched in July 22nd, we had 17 state DOTs join us in this campaign, using social media, using press releases, getting to the national news, our goal being to spread awareness about bridge hits across the corridor. We're in Alabama, so I want to showcase our Alabama folks jumped right in. As I said, the states had been given templates for different releases, and they got really creative about it. So as you can see, each state sort of branded, did some of their own work, but they really got out there and ran for about a 6-day period and talked about what was happening, issued press releases, put stuff out across platforms like X, Threads, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and got it out there. And they got, as I said, they got creative. So one of the key areas was a number of the states developed videos. Some of them were pretty impactful from a visual standpoint, and some of them were actually a little bit fun, but making a serious point. And the same thing in terms of using some of this material to try to really reach audiences. So some of them looked a little closely. I think a couple of our states, I don't have it on this slide, realized that some of their bridge hits were coming significantly from construction industry because of dumps and trucks and as I said, carrier loads of cranes or whatever not being loaded properly, so they adapted them. So what do we do after we've done this outreach? We collected some information. We're still working. My colleague Sabrina Causley's here, still pulling together some of the numbers. It was interesting. Kentucky had one, I can't remember, Sabrina, if it was a video or a meme that got over 1 million hits on social media. So we know we're reaching people, and we want to look at that. One of the areas that was identified, Pennsylvania DOT in one of our meetings said, we're having a real problem when we look at our statistics around back-to-school time, where folks are moving their kids in U-Hauls and hitting our low railroad and highway bridges. So we said, okay, we came up with a quick last-minute brochure or meme around universities. So some of the states are going to move forward and work with some of these around university times. Getting out to the construction industry, winter road salting. We actually heard from states that that's a big issue during wintertime, that some of their own crews are not always remembering to set and check their height. But also we want to improve data collection on bridge hits. To make this impactful, you need to see that there's a problem. And one of the issues that we saw and we pushed really strongly, and I probably didn't speak enough about it on that side, is there's a significant cost to a bridge hit and bridge repairs. But the key most important cost is the safety issue. Safety to motorists in those vehicles, but we would argue in this coalition, first and foremost, every bridge hit, I saw it when I was in law enforcement, I saw it when I was in operations at the New York State Thruway, is we need to send first responders out there and construction crews and maintenance crews on the side of the road while that bridge hit. It's inspected, while it's investigated, and now everyone is at risk. So first and foremost, if we can reduce that risk by reducing those number of hits and taking care of our first responders, taking care of our crews, that's a long way above costs and anything else that we can do, because you can't measure that safety in terms of lives and injuries. So we want to move forward with that data collection. It was pretty impactful with the work that New York had. So one of the things that was in our toolkit is New York State DOT had developed a law enforcement collection sheet that they'd given to the New York State Police, and that was really helpful in getting at some of that data that folks were using GPS, Waze, Google, Apple, not using commercial GPS, that drivers weren't familiar with signage, that drivers did not understand as they came from state to state that some of their signage that states use might change. But also to continue to work with, so I'm going to look to folks going forward, like CVSA, SCNRA, how can we work with the industry? I think if every state could get their law enforcement folks to use that extra data collection, it's a lot easier than trying to revise the motor vehicle form and give those over to their DOTs. I think we'd actually have a lot better data on our targeted audiences. Continuing to collaborate with the modal agencies. FRA actually has a very active group right now, spurred a lot by the railroads because they're not too happy about their bridges getting hit. And it's pretty significant for them. They just can't raise a bridge by 2 inches. It takes something like 2 miles for every 2 inches. And also to work again with these associations. One of the areas that we're looking very closely at is working with AMVA. I know I spoke to a couple folks today, thank you Alabama, DMV people, which is the fact that when we looked at a quick cursory look at DMV manuals in our corridor, they don't talk particularly to non-CDL drivers about bridge heights, about that issue of checking your height when you're operating a vehicle that doesn't require you to have a CDL, but is bigger than your passenger car. And so again, opportunities to partner. Anybody can pretty much, public agencies, be a member of our coalition in some form. We're pretty open, particularly in our traffic systems management operations group and to some degree in our freight group, to have participation in our activities. And we do run a number of peer exchange on relevant topics, again, to share those outcomes and lessons learned and key strategies. So thank you. And again, thank you, Alabama, for participating in that bridge campaign. Thank you.
Well, Eastern Transportation Coalition also has a whole lot to offer, so that was a wealth of information, very interesting. We're going to move on to Robin Riessman. She's the director of UMassSafe, the University of Massachusetts. Robin, whoops, just a second. Robin coordinates these conferences up in the Northeast. She did the first one, the very first one in 2016, and I had the opportunity to attend with a coworker, and And we're like, we should do that in our region. And so that's how this started in the South. So thanks to Robin for that. And I asked Robin if she would speak to us about things universities can do for you, how you can partner with the university, because some folks maybe have never even thought about partnering with the university. So that's what she's going to talk to us about.
Hi, everybody. How are you? It's the very end. You still have a little bit of energy? I have a lot I want to share, but I'm really hoping that you'll share too, so I'm hoping that there'll be some back and forth dialogue. And to get that started, I wanted to ask you a little bit. How many law enforcement are in the room? And how many trucking industry? And how many other safety stakeholders? Good, we got a good mix. So what we want to talk about today is how law enforcement and other commercial motor vehicle stakeholders can collaborate with universities. And when I say collaborate with universities to create partnerships, I really mean how can universities support the work that you do? Sometimes it's universities wanting to do their own work, and that's not partnership. That's different, it's important, it's helpful, but what I want to talk about today is what do you need and how can universities support that work? And how can Rhonda and myself and Brenda and Jen and Eric, who run these summits in the different regions, help you make those connections so that those partnerships can develop if they don't exist already. How many of you already have partnerships with your universities? A couple, great. We want to hear from you. So let me just tell you a little bit about UMassSafe before we get started. UMassSafe sits within the UMass Transportation Center in the College of Engineering at UMass Amherst. We're 25 years old, and we have been working in partnership with a variety of different organizations since we started, including the State Police Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Section since we started 25 years ago. This is the kind of work that we do. These are the kinds of services that we offer. I don't think they're that different than the kinds of services that other universities offer in partnership. And we really started by creating a data warehouse and collecting as many different data sets as we could from as many different places, private and public, in order to support providing you with an understanding of commercial motor vehicle crashes. And then what we did was linked them in a variety of different ways to understand more about those crashes. For example, we linked the commercial motor vehicle safety net data with the state's registry of motor vehicles crash data to understand more about those crashes. So the safety net data tells us a lot more about the truck and bus in the crash, and the registry of motor vehicles data tells us a lot more about the exact location of the crash and some of the causes of the crash. And so linking that data provided us with some richer information. Here's some samples of the kinds of partnerships we have and the groups that we work with. So to the meat of the presentation, why partnerships? Why are partnerships important, and why might you need a partnership with a university? We can't all be experts in everything. Not universities, not law enforcement, not trucking industry. You know, it really takes that village to raise a child. But a university can provide some specialized research and some specialized expertise. So for example, in Massachusetts, the Massachusetts State Police Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Section conducts all the mix-up work. Well, they're not data experts. They don't want to be data experts. That's not what they were trained to do. So they're very happy to say, could you go do that work for us? And could you tell us where our high crash corridors are? Could you tell us the who, what, why, where, when of crashes? And then we'll go out and do the work that we do to prevent crashes based on that information. In terms of thinking about what universities provide, there's a variety of different expertise, and a lot of the work is to just bridge the gap between industry, enforcement, and community, and how research programs can help support that work. So for example, at UMassSafe, We have public health people, that's me, we have engineers, we have data experts, we have human behavior folks, we have policy folks, and then when we don't have folks on our team, we go out and seek them at the university. So for example, we don't have a great statistician on our team, so we go into a variety of different departments at UMass to seek that information. Another reason why I feel like those partnerships are really necessary and getting an academic partner involved is when you're conducting evaluation. So those of you that are in law enforcement, if you're going to conduct a commercial motor vehicle driver distraction program, you want to be able to show the feds at the end of the project that it worked. And getting a university involved can help you do that in a very impartial way. So they're an outsider, they're looking at it from an outside perspective. And from the very beginning, they're asking the kinds of questions that need to be asked to plan that kind of evaluation. So what resources, skills do universities provide? Here's just a slew of examples of the kinds of things that universities can provide. Universities have expertise in training, in program evaluation, in data analysis, in data warehousing. And then these are the kinds of services that they provide. So these are examples not just from UMassSafe, but from the other universities here and the other universities around the country. And they vary, but this is the kinds of stuff that they do. So where do you find university support? How do you get started if you don't have that kind of partnership and you want it? I think the first piece of advice I would give is go to your regional coordinators that are holding these summits who tend to know all those folks and say, hey, I think I want that kind of relationship and I have no idea how to get started, and can you help me make some of those relationships? Another is to go to your federal motor carrier state office or service center. They tend to also work with universities and tend to also have those contacts and can be really helpful. There are, in almost every state, a traffic records coordinating committee. Universities usually sit on those teams. That's another place to meet those folks. So how do you leverage those university resources? I already talked about a lot of this, so I'm not going to go into examples, but there's some examples here. Here's the kinds of things that universities can do. And then how do you build those relationships? Well, you got to find what's in common. So for you, it might be, well, I need to reduce crashes, and I'm looking for your help to do that. For the university, it might be, well, I need something for my students to do. I need real application for my students so that when they leave our program, they have some really concrete experience. Or I need real data for us to look at instead of just some university data. So if you can find those commonalities, then there's something in it for the university and there's something in it for you, and that partnership can be richer. One of the things that I think helps a lot is to engage early. So we talked a little bit before about if you're going to conduct an evaluation of a program. One of the mistakes that I think we often make is we don't invite our partners until we need them. And then we often miss the kinds of questions that they would ask. So let's say you want to do a safety belt campaign to promote increased safety belt use among truckers. If you got a university involved early, they might say, well, I'll go out and do some counts and see, well, how many truck drivers really are belted when they're driving through your state. And in Massachusetts, what we did was we got on bridges with binoculars and counted truck drivers and who was buckled and who wasn't, and got some counts so that the state police could have a place to start. You know, is there already a really high usage rate, in which case maybe that's not a campaign we need to do? Or let's do that campaign and then let's count again afterwards and see, well, did we make a difference? And if we didn't, what could we have done differently? I think another thing to think about is the structure of what that partnership looks like and how a university can help you. So here's just an example of the kind of prioritization and timeline structure that we've used in Massachusetts. So we have a technical assistance center with our state police and with our Executive Office of Public Safety, and it really has two arms. It has a really fast, I need to know something now, and then it has a, I want to take a deep dive look at something, and I want to hire the university to do that. And I'll give you some examples of both. So we had a stakeholder who was on his way to a press conference, and he called us up and he said, I need to know right now, what's the safety belt usage rate among truck drivers in Massachusetts, and what's the safety belt usage rate among other drivers in Massachusetts? I need to give this point in 5 minutes. And we were able to look it up because we already had the information and just give him the numbers. Quick and easy one. Not all universities can do that. Not all relationships can facilitate that, but when it can happen, it's really helpful. And then there's the much longer one here where there's some planning, there's a written agreement, there's some development of the structure. What do we need to know? How do we need to know it? What do we want the findings to be like, etc. And then what are the different types of partnerships? So I spent a lot of time talking about partnerships with law enforcement because those are my favorite. Those are the ones that are near and dear to my heart. I think law enforcement does amazing work and are sometimes asked to do things that are completely unrealistic. I don't know of too many law enforcement that received training in grant writing, that received grant writing in crash data analysis. So I love to do that kind of thing for law enforcement, but there's a lot of others here. And when you think about ways that universities can support, states can support communities, here's some of the different examples. I'm not going to go into them. I tend to talk more about the parts I love. And then what are grants? What are the types of grants that can support these partnerships? Because these partnerships do often cost money. So some of these you're very familiar with. There's federal grants like the ones from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. We receive high priority money from them. Sometimes we receive CDL money from them. The mix-up folks in here obviously receive lots of funding from them. And then there's also state money. So traffic records coordinating committees that often sit out of the Executive Office of Highway Safety have what they call 405C money, which often can fund commercial motor vehicle partnerships and resources from universities to mix-up and other programs. Mix-up programs often fund universities directly. So the mix-up office in Massachusetts funds UMassSafe to write their CVSP for them or to help them write it. So we do all the crash data analysis for it, and then we help them write the rest of it. So when I go to a conference, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So here's some of the other grants and some of the other places to find those kinds of grants. I talked about the ones that I think are the closest and the easiest to touch and hold and work with, but here's some of the others. And then when I go to a conference, my goal is, can I leave with one or two good ideas that I can steal and go home and try to implement in my region? So I thought I would just share with you some of the ones that I've been involved in and hope that you pick and choose and steal and borrow things that might be useful as you are thinking about partnerships in your regions. So Rhonda talked about the summits. We developed the first summit in the eastern area. We're about to start our 5th summit. Since then, all the regions have created summits. It's really exciting to watch. And one of the primary goals of those summits is to promote those partnerships. So one of the things that I hope you leave with today from this summit is an idea for how you can develop a partnership with a university or expand a partnership with a university or reach out to a university for something that you need that you're not able to do yourself. And I think Rhonda and Brenda and Eric and Jen are wonderful resources to help you do that, and for most of you it will be Rhonda. Here's an example of a program in Massachusetts where the state police came to us and they said, you know, we do mix-up enforcement and we do the inspections and the traffic enforcement associated with that, but we're concerned that local and state police are not conducting traditional traffic enforcement with trucks and buses. So we went out and we asked them questions and they said, well, we don't know how to stop a truck. And they have different laws and they're big and we don't know what to do. And so we created a website with resources. So what kinds of officer safety issues do you need to be thinking about that are different than when you stop a truck, than when you stop a passenger car? And this is stopping a truck for speeding. This is stopping a truck for following too closely. This is stopping a truck for traditional traffic enforcement. And clearly that is something that can be done by beyond mix-up, that can be done by all law enforcement. So we tried to create some resources for them to help improve their comfort with stopping a truck. And then we expanded that to a national program and developed the T-Force Toolkit, which was 2 pieces, a website that's on the left and some curriculum that's on the right that is strictly for mix-up officers to teach local law enforcement and state police that are not part of a mix-up team about how to stop trucks and buses. And then we expanded that to something called T-Force Analytics to provide law enforcement, mostly mix-up folks, but also other law enforcement, with information on the who, what, why, when, where of crashes. This is not the deep dive, this is the basics. Tell me what time of day, where in my state, what age group are getting in crashes. Is it the truck driver? Is it the passenger car? Is it on Route 95? Is it in State Police Barracks A? Which troopers are writing the most citations? That kind of thing. And then, as I said before, we help the State Police Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Section write their commercial vehicle safety plan. And this is just the kinds of analysis that we do to help them better understand the crashes in their region. Some of this I think they really know instinctively. They know where the crashes are occurring, but they need that crash data analysis, that map that documents, yep, we're right, this is the high crash corridor, or this is the characteristic of the kinds of folks that are getting in those crashes. The other kinds of work that we've done has been to help state agencies to develop programming to promote commercial motor vehicle safety. So a driver distraction program and a safety belt campaign that I talked about before. And what we found in Massachusetts was that the truck team wanted to do the enforcement, but they didn't want to do all the education. They didn't necessarily feel trained to do all of it. They felt trained to do some of it. So they said to us, would you first go out there and do some counts and tell us how many truck drivers are using their phones, et cetera, and then would you help us with the education campaign, and then we'll do the enforcement, and then would you do some of those counts afterwards? And same kind of thing with safety belt campaigns. And then some of the work that I think can happen around partnership that can promote commercial motor vehicle safety doesn't have to be in the commercial motor vehicle safety world. It can be outside of that world. So I mentioned before the Traffic Records Coordinating Committee. They have NHTSA funds, 405C funds to do traffic records work. This was a project that we developed in partnership with the Executive Office of Public Safety. It's a website to help all law enforcement complete crash reports and complete them as completely and easily as they can. Now, they got a lot of stuff to do on the side of the road, and they want to get in and out of there quick, but we want their data, so we want it to be as good as it possibly can. And so this is a resource for them to look up things online while they're completing the crash report, as well as a way to look at how they're doing and to compare this department to this department, or this officer to this officer. How are they doing? Do they need more training? Are they leaving more fields blank than others? Are they filling out fields incompletely? That sort of thing. So in a nutshell, those partnerships only work if the university is there to help you, not you to help the university. And I think universities sometimes forget that, and it's an important reminder. There's a lot in it for the university. You know, the university gets access to data, gets access to grants, gets real world things for their students to work on. But in the end, their job is to support your work and to figure out what you need and how to help you. And some of that is to figure out grant funding and how to use grant funding to support you and to do the work that they do so that it doesn't necessarily cost you money. Some of it is to align with national priorities so that there is a way for you guys to connect in order to meet similar goals. And there's certainly challenges for universities. Universities are huge bureaucracies. So if you're part of a state police mix-up office, you're a bureaucracy of your own. And then you want to start collaborating with another huge bureaucracy, a university. And there are certainly challenges involved. There's written agreements that need to be written. There's universities that charge indirect cost and how to make that work. There's connections with the federal agencies and what restrictions exist in those grants. And so part of the work that needs to happen is to figure out how to make all of that jive and work so that it works for you. And I think it takes a lot of communication. So I meet with the head folks in the mix-up office of state police every week to say, what's working, what's not, what do you need, what don't you need, what are we doing that's bugging you, where do you need us to leave you alone, where do you need us to be more involved, what can we do to help and support you? And finally, these are some professional networking organizations where you also might find information about those partnerships and about how to develop them and about different universities that are doing different kinds of work. Ideally, you want to work with a university that's in your state, but it doesn't always work. So right now we have a project called the Safety Data Collaborative where we're providing resources to other states that don't have relationships with their universities and how to make that work. And that's it. And I think we're going to wait for questions till the end. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Just one thing I'll say, in addition to the students that Robin talked about, a lot of university centers and institutes have professional staff. They have, software developers and data analysts and research engineers that are professional staff that may utilize students too, but it's not just students. I know we get asked that sometimes. People think it's just students, and it's like, well, it's not just students. So let me get this last one pulled up. So our last speaker is, in this session, Major Andrew Montgomery from the Georgia Department of Public Safety Commercial Vehicle Enforcement. So he's, of course, going to give us a law enforcement perspective and how some of these partnerships has benefited his agencies or can benefit field operations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you waiting me out. You want to go ahead and get the other 300 people and wave them in for me? Let them know I'm up. So look, I'm going to kind of keep this brief because I know you've been here a long time. However, I'm going to talk about partnerships from our perspective, from a law enforcement's point of view. I had a different challenge probably than some other state mix-up commanders. So, my opinion on this is solely mine. I think it works for us, and we've had a successful program. And I do want to give a shout out to my team for the work they did at the truck and the simulator out there. If you had a chance to visit that, I think they did a great job. So I guess it don't work on this one then. I froze the damn thing up myself. But anyhow, types of partnerships. If you want to fix it real quick, I can. I know it all by memory. This stuff I know.
What, are you able to
It
advance
just
it?
won't click. Yeah, however you advance it. It advances there. It won't advance there, though.
Yeah, it did that.
That's not the same screen.
That's the same. Oh, no, it's not, is it? That's interesting. Huh. Value and times, that's back, now it's the same.
Y'all read those quotes while we're working through this.
What happened?
I don't know.
Well.
So y'all can hear me fine, I'm sure. So the different type of partnerships that I feel like work for Georgia, and something that I felt like was a template for us to be able to move our program forward. I broke it down into 4 categories, and I can just, it don't matter. Y'all don't need to see it, I can just talk to you.
I'll let Rebecca, it's like it's frozen now.
No, it's no worries. So, again, the 4 categories that I work from, the template is. Is that what it is? Y'all don't walk out on me yet. I promise you're gonna be excited by the end of this. I'm good. I can just do it off this. It's no worries.
Okay. It's very strange.
Yep, no worries at all. No, no worries. No worries at all. That did something.
Okay, here we go.
Now you want to fix it?
Close it out. There are too many.
So you sure want to advance it here, right?
Here.
Here. Okay. All right, let's try to get back on task. So again, the 4 types of partnerships that I used as a template for our agency was through vendor, industry, and legislative and agencies. And I'm going to break those down for you, not too in-depth, but just kind of a brief overview of what it is that I felt like helped us continue to build our program and make it what it is today. So vendor partnership, provide advanced tools, technology, and training to improve inspection accuracy and efficiency. Deliver innovative solutions and ongoing support that enhance enforcement capabilities and foster collaboration and research. So the point of that is that you're going to have to, as a commander from the enforcement side, you're going to have to look at ways to work with vendors to be able to accomplish the mission. And that's something that we did and we utilized, and we started a partnership in 2017 with CAPS to begin a data platform to help us kind of learn how to allocate our resources in a way that makes us more effective. GRID is really the format that we use, which basically is a real-time crash and enforcement data platform, as I explained, and it was developed by the university to drive enforcement strategies. So what we do with this program is we utilize the data that it collects to give us an indication of where our crashes occur in our state, and it breaks it down by day, time of day, and just a plethora of information that it provides us. And what we do is we allocate resources to those affected areas by using the data. You know, the traditional policing strategy was just to go out and patrol. And what we want to do is we want to try to make our resources not just useful but effective, and the data drives us in that direction. And it's been a great partnership with CAPS and the programs that we use. Again, what we do too is each regional captain in our state has access to these programs, and that's how they schedule their officers, and that's how they allocate, again, their resources to be able to kind of understand exactly what's causing our crashes and be able to kind of focus and target that if that works for you. This is just a quick diagram of how that partnership looks. I don't have to read each slide to you, but again, it's probably one of the best things that we've done as a division because, again, it gives us the tools that we need to know how to build an enforcement strategy. Yesterday, someone brought up the photo about the driver with the foot. This is an AccuSensus program that we've used. Again, you're going to have to find some enforcement strategy or vendor that helps you continue to be innovative in the way that you attack the challenges within your state or within your jurisdictions. And AccuSensus has been a great program for us, and it's worked. We're doing a lot with it, and we're really discovering, because again, one was bringing up the height difference in vehicles. I mean, it's very hard to have an officer out there trying to observe these moving violations, and he or she's having to be distracted just to do it. This system allows us to be able to set up in a safe location, put the device in whether it be in work zones or whatnot, and it will capture that image and then send it to the computer, and then we can go make a safe traffic stop at a location that we kind of designate. So that's a system that we use in a program that works really well. Just as a bragging right, I put this one in there too. This was a case that was made off of that where the driver, he was actually leaning on these plastic bags, which wasn't the reason for the stop. It was because of a cell phone usage anyway. He had like 55 pounds of dope under his arm. We thought it was a great photo. So yeah, the technologies that they have today can really do a lot for your programs, and it's something that's really done well for us. Quiet your phone, please. No, I'm just joke, don't get mad. Industry partnership. This is something that I really hold dear because I don't think it's something that is from an enforcement, and maybe I shouldn't speak for every state. I'll just speak for Georgia. We did a terrible job of really working with our industry. The way we kind of formatted it was, we're the good guys, you're the bad guys, right? Y'all are a bunch of dirty truck drivers, don't do nothing good in our state. However, you got to really, and this is the way that I've been touting it all over the place wherever I go. Industry is what keeps your economy moving forward. Without truck drivers, without people out there moving freight and being able to provide the services through CMV transportation, your state will not succeed. This is a must to have. So having an effective strategy and plan and enforcement, that's what protects our economy. So we want to support our industry. We want to support our truck drivers. And again, we want to root out the bad actors. We know they're out there. We have the data to prove that. We have impairment, drugs, cargo theft. There's all kinds of things that we can point to. However, the overwhelming majority of our industry are good, hardworking people that we want to support in our state. So when I go to these different conferences and I speak to industry specifically, I open up with this one thing. I say this: I'm pro-business. I want you to succeed. I want you to be profitable, right? You can't look at it and say, look, the one thing that our goal should be is to put every damn one out of service. Like, to put everyone out, hopefully they all go out of business and they all don't do well. That is not what promotes your economies or your state's economy, and it does not support what it is that we know our citizens need, which is our trucking industry. So we heavily support that, and we want to make sure that we communicate that well. And so, again, I don't know if y'all heard Seth with GMTA. We didn't have a great relationship with our trucking association. So that's something that we wanted to make sure that we do. And I've employed our folks to go out and start building these relationships. The funny thing is, and I do say this kind of often, building partnerships sometimes, you think that they would be willing, like it's a willing partnership, but it takes time to build trust and to build something that really bridges a gap between, each other's missions. Because again, I'll tell you this quick story. I was at the Oilmen's Association Board of Directors meeting, and I was speaking with, with of course all of them about transportation of hazardous materials. And one of the owners said, one of the biggest, he said, a nightmare that I have is waking up the next morning and realizing that one of my trucks killed, 3 or 4 people in a vehicle. They have the same worries and concerns we do. So again, a partnership between us and a continuous dialogue is what's necessary, right? And from an enforcement point of view, we haven't in Georgia traditionally done the right things in that arena. So I feel like we've taken this new approach, and it's starting to really, I believe, pick up some good momentum for us to be able to work with our businesses in our state. So, legislative partnerships. Challenging. I don't know if you've ever worked with any legislators. It's challenging. This is what I say. This is my rule of thumb. You write this down. It takes 10 favors to get a half of one back. That's the way it works. All right? So your point can't be this. I'm speaking to the law enforcement, whoever it is. Your approach cannot be, this is just all we need you to do is give us more money and better benefits. If that's the first time you talk to your legislators, you're already behind. You have to go and engage them and see what it is. What are their constituents' issues? What are some things that you can do from a divisional or, what approach can you take to work collaboratively with them to improve safety in your state? And I think when you come at them from that point of view and you speak on, again, the state's economy, I think that they understand that so much better than cops need more money. So if you want any piece of advice to try to build those relationships and make them worthwhile, save that after the 10th favor you did. So, I don't mean any negative, like bad favors either, just by the way. I'm just meaning just favors, you know what I mean? Just, you work with them. You go start, what we've done too, and it's something I'll kick off this here in a second. Something that we've done that I thought has been really impactful in our state, I've gotten with our ag commissioner for one. We did some tours around the state where we go speak to the local farmers. And first thing that we tell them, same thing, we're pro-farmers. I mean, we want you to be successful. We want you to move, your product or your harvest, across our roadways. We just want you to do it safely. So, having those conversations. Another thing I've been working on is something that I haven't completely finished, and this is something I work with some of our legislators on as well, is a program that can incentivize our industry to be safe. And I'll just briefly kind of cover it, and you may have some questions about it. If you do, that's fine. But what we've done is we've built, or in the process of building, an online educational platform where industry can go on, their drivers, and they can take a course that's designed by us with material that is data-driven and that's specific to their commodity. So let's say, for example, if you have someone that's in the forestry business, it'll be a category for forestry. What they can do, they can take our course that we put together, and at the end, be able to print that certificate and then take it to the insurance companies to get a reduction on insurance costs. Insurance has been a conversation that's been throughout this summit, and it's something that Georgia is taking serious to say, look, we can't just write you tickets. We got to figure out other ways to help, hopefully, not just minimize the cost, but hopefully reinvest that money back into safety. That's where the tax credit comes into play, but that's later on down the road. We're first just getting the insurance thing accomplished, which I think we're doing, and we're doing well. So if you want an opinion from me, if you're interested in something like that too, I went to our insurance commissioner, had a meeting with him, and explained what it is that I wanted to do. And his first comment was, I can't mandate insurance companies to give reductions. I said, well, I'm not asking you to tell them to do anything. What I want you to do is simply join me in this conversation and say, there is a way to help and incentivize this program. And we've gotten a lot of good feedback. We've already got calls from Federator and different insurance companies that want to work with us on that. So again, that's just a way to work with your legislator and honestly, we didn't need the funding for it. It was something relatively low cost to build the platform, and we contracted that out, and it's working. So again, we haven't completely gone live with that, but it's just, I figure since it's such a small group and y'all won't tell, I'll just let you know what it is I'm up to. So that's one thing that we're working on. Multi-agency partnership. This is an important thing. I come from a local agency, but prior to getting on with the state, had no clue about like commercial trucks, like nothing. Like I didn't mess with them because they weren't interested in me. However, because here's the thing about commercial safety and enforcement, and I'll keep it clean. It's not real appealing. Let me say that. It's just not an appealing. Most police officers don't look at it. They say, all I've ever wanted to do is check trucks. Like that's not, usually you want to be SWAT team guys or K-9 handle. You want all these fancy things. But again, I think it's also the proper messaging and branding of what this is that just we haven't done a great job at doing. And the local agencies don't understand it. So what we did there is we developed what we call a CMV 101 class. And again, we try not to make it as if we think they're completely stupid, because they're not. I was stupid to it to a degree, but what we do is we go to the local agencies and we talk on what it is that they can enforce, what they can do as a local deputy or a police officer to enforce any type of violations, because a lot of them just kind of get overwhelmed with it. I know when I stopped a truck for speeding and they wanted to hand me all this paperwork, I said, look, I don't need any of that. All I need is your license. I'm just going to write you this ticket and send you on your way. And so we had no knowledge really through your basic academies on what and how to address a commercial motor vehicle. So getting with your local agencies, I believe, is very important. Working with the FMCSA has been an absolute pleasure. Dr. Steele has been great to work with. CVSA has got an amazing association that we love to work with and partner with as well. There's just so many things that I think that we need to do past just writing tickets and just saying that, look, it's the truck driver's fault. I know there's been some statistics that were thrown around saying a lot of it's non-CMVs that are the issue. Well, I'll tell you, in Georgia, it's a roughly 50-ish, right? So, I mean, I can't say all the time that it's just non-CMV. But distracted driving and things of such are high causative factors in our state, and we know that's what we're facing, and that's the challenge. But really, if we're all honest with ourselves, that's not a trucking industry problem. Everybody in here knows they get on that cell phone, they get in their vehicle, and we all do the same thing. So it's really a society issue, and it targets the CMV world because, again, I know in Georgia we're 4th in the nation on fatality crashes involving CMVs. So I know that it's an issue that we have to address, but really it's a cultural issue that we have to tackle. And I think the continuous education and discussion about it is how we really attack that and just put the statistics out there. And here's the thing. When we talk numbers and we talk statistics and we say, well, there's, for example, like in Georgia, we lose on average between 15 and 19 people a month in CMV-related fatality crashes. Just think about it. You pretty much count 6 tables, 7 tables, they're all done. We can clear the room in just 2 to 3 months in Georgia. So with that, the discussion and open dialogue, I think, is the way to do this, and I don't think it's in a continuous enforcement element alone that can tackle the problem. That's why the discussion of partnerships is just so important to us, and it's something that we have to do, and we have to reach across the aisle, whether it be through vendors to help us learn how to build and innovate in technology and enforce, or whether it be through our industry on having that consistent and constant conversation about how to improve the safety in our state, or whether it be through our legislators to secure funding and grants and different conversation and rules and regs that we can get passed within your states to assist in that, or whether it be through working with your local agencies. And I'll say this too, interdepartmental relationships. My lieutenant colonel's in here, and we are great friends, but we didn't always have between the divisions, if you will, a great relationship. And what I mean by great, I'm not saying that we wouldn't sit down and eat lunch together. What I'm saying is we weren't partnered well enough to attack the problem. Because again, CMV safety and enforcement is really one element, because again, the second part of that is the non-CMV side. So we work well departmentally to address that issue, and then bringing in the local governments as well to understand that and explain how we can create some details together to go out and approach this from not just a one-dimensional, but from all angles that are involved in traffic, if that makes sense to you. So in conclusion, this is just kind of a statement of conclusion here, but again, first off, I want to say thank you to the Summit for allowing me an opportunity to speak. I'm the last speaker of the day. I don't know what that says. I don't know whether that means that you felt like not many people needed to hear what I had to say, or you thought it would keep people in their seats to hear what I have to say. I don't know. I'm going to go with option B. I'm going to go with option B, that y'all sat here waiting for me. But no, all jokes aside, I really appreciate the opportunity. This continuous dialogue and the summits and the conferences, although they can be very entertaining to go to and be able to see what's out in the towns and have the nightlife, if you will, all that is fine and dandy, but what we do here is so vital to our operations, whether it be through industry or enforcement, and I just think that it's a wonderful opportunity to come together and highlight this, and I am glad I got to do the end part, because I got to almost have the last word. But anyhow, I want to thank you each for allowing me the opportunity. If there's something I can do for you, again, what I do may not be necessarily applicable to your state. I would tend to believe, though, that there's some commonalities that we can have and work together on. So I just appreciate it, and I just wanted to throw this last slide up for anybody, just for anybody that's an Alabama fan, because look, we're always here to whoop that. Well, let me keep it clean. ASS at any given time. Georgia's tough. We're resilient people. So anyhow, thank you again. Does anybody have any quick questions, or do you want to hold questions to the end, or how'd you do that?
Well, this is the end of this session. I was going to see if anybody had any questions for any of the four of you, and while you're thinking, please don't take it personally that you were the last speaker. No, maybe I did save the best for last.
That's joking. You got to know my
did great.
personality.
I did purposely put this session at this point, because I thought it was more of a summation. We've been talking about so many things, and this, to kind of say, yes, but here's all these other partnerships we could have as well. And then I purposely put you last of the four, because I knew you were going to give some concrete examples of these partnerships, so.
Well, I did waive my speaker fee, I'm going to save the summit some money. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I really appreciate it. It was just a joke.
Does somebody have questions for these four? Okay, well, I know that we got a lot from them, and I know it's getting late, and you may not want to ask questions, but we can reach out to any of them at any time, and I appreciate all of their information they shared with us.